issues that we were raising. One of them was the issue of the elections of 2022. Because as you know, we had opportunity to access the server, and which was telling completely different story of the one that was announced by Mr. Chebukati. So we pressed for the server to be opened. And secondly, we also talked about the high cost of living, which was really putting a lot of stress on the population of our country. And we also talked about the issue of corruption in the country. That, you know, there was a very violent reaction to our demonstrations, and we lost quite a number of our people. We did come out clearly saying that change must come in the country. And all in all, we lost about 70 people at that time. But then the international community intervened, and we had a conversation with President Ruto and agreed to set up a task force to mediate and come up with proposals on how to deal with the issues in contention. It was led by Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka and Mr. Kimani Ichung'wah. They came up with what we call the NADCO report. And we then said the NADCO report needed to be implemented. It was taken to Parliament, but there was quite a bit of prevarication, but it eventually went through Parliament. But before it was implemented, then, of course, the Gen Z issue came up.
June 2024.
Just June 2024. Had the NADCO report been implemented earlier, we would not have ended up with
the Gen Z protests?
Exactly. Because the issues that the youth were raising were very similar to the ones that we were raising the previous year. Now, the youth, of course, say that they were out to finish the job. They asked me to stay home. And I did respect their wishes, and I stayed home. And, of course, they went further than we had gone. They stormed the Parliament. They even stormed the judiciary. And they were on their way to State House when they were blocked by the forces. But when they overwhelmed the police, then the regime tried to bring the military. When we protested that military cannot be deployed on civilian population without express authority of Parliament, they went to Parliament and coerced Parliament to pass it. And it showed the military on the streets for the first time, which was a very dangerous development. Now they were stalemate at that time. And there was a danger that ultimately the military would come to take over. We were almost on the brink of that happening at that time. But then when that happened, there were speculations as to what was going to happen. The Gen Zs were not able now to come on the streets, and that was actually going to create a state of anarchy in our country. We've seen what has happened in other countries in a similar situation. So in that charged environment, one of my colleagues, President Uhuru Kenyatta, called me. He was in the US, and basically suggested that although he knows I don't want to talk to Mr. Ruto, in the interest of the country, I need to find a way of talking to him.
When was this?
Pardon?
When was this? Immediately after the Gen Z protests?
Do you remember I issued a statement condemning what was happening and urged President Ruto to take measures to stop what was happening, the brutality that was taking place. I did not even have to eventually look for Mr. Ruto. He asked to come and see me and agreed that we could talk. When we had discussions, I was very clear to him. I said, this is the issues, these have come up because you did not implement the NADCO report. That's why we are where we are today. And under these circumstances, you must have a broader conversation to bring the people together so that you can be able to confront the issues which are in contention. But eventually, he agreed, and he announced that he was going to convene a forum for Kenyans to have a discussion on the issues in contention. Of course, this was rejected by the Gen Zs, that it was a waste of time, because I supported this proposal. It was actually my idea. But then they say that, we have had these conversations several times, the issues are clear, that the government just need to implement what is being demanded. Then Ruto actually came up and said, okay, I'm going to dissolve the cabinet. And I'm also not going to sign the finance bill. I'm referring it back to Parliament. In my view, that is what pricked the balloon. Because now there are no issues. There was no government, and there was also no finance bill. You see, and once that happened, Ruto now said that he was going to form a government in consultation with all stakeholders to create a consensus. We said we don't want to stay in government until we have had a conversation as a people, which did not happen. Then he said he would at least appoint half of the cabinet so that there was no stalemate, which he did. After doing that, we tried to consult among ourselves in Azimio if we could find a way of participating in a broad-based government. I myself was against it. My other colleagues were also against it. But then eventually, the group within my party felt that the statement that we had required that some experts who are not part of the Kenya Kwanza regime can go into the government and see how they can help to steady the ship and come up with new ideas to deal with the issues in contention.
At this particular point, Excellency, in your own words, you've said that the Gen Z protests of June 2024 happened because the recommendations in the NADCO report had not been implemented. I would go further and say the recommendations in the NADCO report are well captured in Chapter 10 of the Constitution on national values and principles of governance. But the solution to these recommendations not being implemented was by having ODM leaders or members joining government?
No. What I'm trying to say was the country was in a state of crisis. It was a stalemate, as it were. You see, one time Ruto must go, Ruto is not going. And the streets have become almost inaccessible. So it is a stalemate which can actually create a state of anarchy. And that anarchy can end up in a state like Somalia. That is not what we thought was an option. And that's really why this decision was taken at that time, to get a government at least moving forward, which somebody can negotiate with. And that's how we allowed our people to join the government. And I said we were not in government at that time, and which is true, until after we did clear negotiations and came up with the 10-point agenda. That is when formally the ODM agreed to join a broad-based government.
Now that you've brought the conversation to the 10-point agenda and the memorandum of understanding between ODM and UDA, what was the difference in recommendations between NADCO and the 10-point agenda?
That's not different. Those are the issues which are in contention. They're just spelled out clearly in the 10-point agenda. And now we've agreed that we are going to now do an analysis of on implementation of those 10-point agenda. Actually, we have set up a task force to see how they've been implemented, what has been implemented and what has not been implemented in the 10-point agenda. And shortly, a report is going to be issued by that task force.
As leader of ODM, in terms of even analyzing what has been implemented, even before the task force, there are things that are live. For instance, compensation for victims of, for past victims of protests and victims of rights violations. Today, after the 10-point agenda, those killed in the June 2024 protests, the Gen Zs, have not been compensated. This is something you can assess. This is something that does not require a task force. What is your position on the lack of compensation? What is your position on the fact that peaceful protests has been criminalized?
I have actually come out openly to criticize the government. Remember when, for example, the minister said that people should be shot if they try to attack a police station. I said it was totally out of order. When President Ruto said, shoot the legs, I also came out and said, no, that will mean you're taking law into your own hands. I said that nobody should have a right to shoot. If somebody is actually committing a crime, the duty of the police are to arrest that person and take him to the courts. It is only after due process that somebody should be actually punished. That I said clearly, very clearly, that is not our position. On the issue of compensations, we have said this must happen. And shortly, you're going to see what is going to happen. The compensations are going to start.
Excellency, how are these compensations going to start? The national budget was passed just the other day. There was no provision anywhere in the budget about compensation. This is something you sat and discussed with President William Ruto, ODM and UDA, and said this must happen. Within the very first financial year, it's clearly not factored in.
There's always provision of contingencies in the budget. The contingency fund is available. And I just want you to hold your horses. Shortly, there's going to be compensations, which is going to start. And we now have a task force to deal with it. Yes.
Do we need a task force? Because you're speaking about a task force.
No, to implement.
No, this is a different question, Your Excellency. Do we have a task force? Do we need a task force, rather, to assess on whether, so far, the leadership and integrity, which was quoted in the 10-point agenda, the fact, the point about ethical governance, which is part of the reason as to why Gen Zs went to the protests. Do you need a task force to assess whether that has changed today?
No, you don't need a... Why? Did I say you need a task force?
Yes, as you said, that there is a task force that will analyze the implementation of the 10-point agenda so far so that it informs your next move.
Exactly what I'm saying. We need somebody to look at what has been done and what has not been done. That is for our internal consumption. It's not for the public. We just have it, and we have not even announced it. But we have. I'm just telling you that we have a task force doing that for our own purposes. And we will soon give you an account of what has been implemented and what has not been implemented.
Again, I take you back to picking Raila Odinga's position on abductions and killings. Abductions and killings happened in June 2024. Abductions and killings happened in the Azimio protest of 2023. Abductions and killings are happening today after the 10-point agenda in violation of the 10-point agenda. Which is the red line for Raila Odinga and ODM?
You see, this is not just Raila Odinga. This is the issue of ODM as a party. And we just had a National Executive Committee meeting last week in which we took a position on those issues, which I'm not going to divulge right now. But we as a party have our positions on this. There's a red line, which of course, if it crosses, we will take a decision. But at the moment, I just want to tell you that some of those issues are being implemented. Some have not been implemented. And we will give our position and say, if this and that is not done, we will have the option to do A, B, C, D, because that is also provided for in the MOU.
As we speak, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights records that 38 lives that were lost in the Sabasaba protests alone. There were the June 25th protests as well, 2025. Lives lost. The dignity of human life, the point of extrajudicial killings, was spoken about in the 10-point agenda. That's why I'm asking, then, what number will get us to this red line? Because you said there is a red line.
You see, our own issue of Sabasaba, we were actually commemorating Sabasaba. And I came out clearly and said I was going to go to Kamkunji to commemorate Sabasaba. Because Sabasaba was about Kamkunji. It was not about just general demonstrations countrywide. Okay? And I said I would go to Kamkunji. Unfortunately, other people actually took actions elsewhere differently. And the situation actually became almost uncontrollable. You remember, I was not even able to go to Kamkunji because the streets were closed by the government. And Sabasaba was about going to Kamkunji to ask the people of Kenya if the country is ready for multipartyism.
Your Excellency, you are contradicting yourself when you say Sabasaba was about Kamukunji. This is why I say so. On 4th July 2023, these are 3 days to Sabasaba of 2023. This is what you said. You were at the SKM Command Center and you said that the only weapon that we have, this is direct quote, the only weapon that we have in our land is our sovereign power to picket, to protest, to boycott, and to embark on civil disobedience. We begin this on Friday, July the 7th. You went further to say that we invite all our people to prepare to join the Kamukunji in Nairobi and in different other places across the country on Friday. I want to repeat that it is not just in Nairobi, even other centers across the country. July 4th, 2023. 2 years down the line, what has changed?
But that is very specific. I said Kamkunji, and also in other centers, in other people, wherever they were going to say, this is where we are going to go. This is where we are going to picket. So it must be specific. You must say clearly that we are going to go to this particular place to picket. If you're saying in Nairobi, we say we are going to Kamkunji. That's the only place. So it's not going to be in Kawangware, it's not going to be in Woodley, it's not going to be in Mukuru Kwanjenga or anywhere else. It's a specific place. And that is where you ask the police to be.
Mm-hmm. The people of Kenya who were taking part in the protest said they would do Sabasaba or take part in the protest, not at Kamkunji, but they said the specific places, Nairobi CBD, and they listed different other places which they were to occupy. Was there anything wrong with that?
Yes, I was just saying, CBD, you go to CBD, basically, you are going to cause a lot of destruction to the business of CBD. That's why even ourselves, when we were with Charles Rubia and Kenneth Matiba, we said we'll go to Kamkunji grounds, where we are going to talk to the people of Kenya and ask them if they are ready for multipartyism or not. So it was a very specific agenda. This is what I'm trying to say. There's nothing different. We're saying that if we are going to do demonstrations, we don't want the other people whose businesses are private to be affected. We want to go and make a point so that the government listens to what we are trying to say. This is what it is. So, and this is how it happened all over the world. It's not just in Kenya. It's
not just in Kenya. Let me take you back again to your speech, this particular Sabasaba, where you said you tried to differentiate what Sabasaba then was and what Sabasaba today appeared to be. And I'm simply quoting. And you said it was not about one group against the other or one part of the country against the other. Is this what you think this particular protests were about? One group against the rest of Kenya?
No. See, Sabasaba, we had a definite objective. See, a definite objective at that time was we had the issue of multipartyism. Now people are commemorating Sabasaba because they have other issues, but it is actually the same objective. In other words, you are trying to address the government on issues which are affecting the people at that period of time. Here, for example, people are talking about the cost of living. They're talking about unemployment. They're talking about corruption. These are issues which can affect the society. And you agree that you're going to address these issues at a particular time and a particular place. So you mentioned the venue and the time where you're going to assemble and address those issues. So it's not just left anyhow.
Then why was it important for this to come out of your speech? That it was not one group against the entire nation, this community against that community, and we agree that was not what Sabasaba was in 1990. That equally is not what the protests in July and June 2025 were about. It is not about one community against the other or one part of the country against the other. Why was it important for this to be captured in your speech, Excellency?
No, but I was just being general. It was not one group like, say, the youth versus the elderly, or the west versus the east, or the north versus the south, or one gender versus the other gender, and so on and so forth. That's what I was just being general.
Okay.
Exactly.
Let's now talk about the intergenerational national conclave. This is what you called for in your speech during Sabasaba. And Excellency, do you ever run out of dialogue ideas?
No. I don't run out of dialogue. And because people must talk. When there is a crisis, people must find a solution to the crisis. If you don't find a solution to the crisis, you just get anarchy. That's why we talk about dialogue. And this happens all the times. When there's a crisis, people talk. When there's no crisis, it's when, things are okay, the institutions work. But if the institutions have failed to work, for example, the parliament is not solving the issues. The government is not acting the way people wanted the government to act. The people are dissatisfied. The people are on the streets. The people have a right to talk. See, our constitution says at Article 1 that the sovereignty, the Republic of Kenya, rests with the people of Kenya. They can exercise it either directly or through their elected representatives. What does that mean? The one of elected representatives is known to everybody. The people go to the ballots, they elect their MCS, MPs, senator, governor, and president. But then, how about this one of direct by the people? How do 55 million people come together to exercise that sovereignty? How do they? This is dialogue. That's when you can talk about we the people of Kenya. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. That article must have some meaning. How do the people exercise direct sovereignty?
So how exactly do you envision this conclave?
You see, that's now very good. I'm happy at least that Kenyans are now discussing this issue. That's where I wanted this to be. And you can have suggestions. My suggestion is that you start at the grassroots. Grassroots here, at the polling station, where everybody has the right to assemble. They assemble there, issues affecting them, and then they agree that they elect representatives to go to the next level. And once they've discussed, they come up with issues, point 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Then now they elect people from there, say 50 people or 40, 20. 20 are the youth, the rest are the 20. And of course you look at the gender representation. Then you go to the next level, which is the ward level. The same exercise. We have come from our polling station. This is what we have. These are the issues. These are the issues. They discuss at that level. And again, elect another 40 or 50 to go to the next level of now sub-county. At the sub-county again, the same exercise. From there they go to county. Then now you end up with counties having delegates of 40-40 coming to the national conclave. Now the national conclave, you can add there members of parliament, and then after that now you add other stakeholders like religious groups, the civil society, the intellectuals, the workers' representatives, and so on and so forth. That now is a conclave that can talk about we the people.
Let's talk about the possibility of this happening. Your proposal is having representatives from the polling station. You've mentioned a figure of, say, 40 or 50. If we were to go by the IEBC records, we have more than 40,000 polling stations. So we're speaking about in excess of 2 million people across the country sitting at polling station level. How are they operating at the polling station level to even now go to ward level, constituency level, county level? They will definitely require some funding for their activities. Where do we get this funding from before we even get to the national platform, which I think, because it will have about 3,000 people, is a political rally as opposed to a dialogue?
I'm saying they fund it themselves because these are the people. At a polling station, you don't need a funding. What do you need a funding for? People just come from their homes and sit down and talk. You don't need any funding. These are the people. We are the people, and you have a problem. Why do you want to be funded?
There'll be secretarial work.
No, they just sit down and talk as local community. And then they elect the representatives. They have a problem. They fund it themselves. That's when it is people thing. If you may talk about who is going to fund it, then you're bringing the government into it. You don't need the government. This is a people process.
If you do not need the government, then at what point, even at the national level, will you have these recommendations implemented? Because it surely requires government.
We, the people, that will fund itself. The process will fund itself.
From polling station to the national level?
Yes.
I would want to really have a clear picture of it from Odinga's perspective.
The moment you bring in the issue of money, you now have to bring another institution to it. But this is a people process. The people themselves will raise the money. The people will raise the money to send their delegates.
And in recommending the Intergenerational National Conclave, this is what you said, that the most important struggle taking part in our country today is a struggle for good government and economic opportunity and equality. You are ahead to say the biggest challenge facing Kenya today and into the foreseeable future is how to expand economic opportunity and lift particularly young Kenyans out of poverty, exclusion, and unemployment. Kenyans are yearning for programs and leaders that prioritize economic inclusivity, social justice, and political freedom. This is what you're basing your arguments on for the conclave.
Exactly.
But these very things have been discussed in previous dialogues. I mentioned about 10-point agenda. It captures some of these very issues. NADCO captures some of these very issues. And most importantly, Chapter 10 of the Constitution captures everything about transparent leadership, accountable leadership, citizen-centric leadership, public participation, and such. Then why do we need a dialogue?
You see, you're missing the point here. What you're talking about, NADCO, were just about five people from this side.
But same issues.
But these are few people talking. They did not come from the grassroots. They're just ideas which have been raised in the media, which can be discussed up here. But you need to get the people coming down there from the ground, coming up, and it must be a bigger forum than the one you're talking about. All these have been just for us here by the intellectuals talking. But we want to get the people coming from down there, getting the issues coming from the grassroots.
At what point do the national political parties come in? At what point does President William Ruto come in, or Raila Odinga in this particular conversation? Because your opponents are saying you're calling for dialogue because it will benefit you as a person or your allies. You're calling for dialogue that will have you sit there, or your allies sit there, and eventually the process will result in something beneficial to Odinga and his allies.
Not at all.
You'll not come in at any point?
If I were to come in, I just come in as a participant. Even President Ruto cannot just come in as a participant. He's not coming there as a president. It's as an individual, if he's included. Because I've said you include members of parliament and so on. I'm not a member of parliament, so I may not myself be a participant, okay? Unless I participate from down the grassroots. I may not be a participant at this meeting. So this is not intended to help Raila or Ruto. This is basically a Kenyan process, a people's process. And this will help us deal with the crisis that we're having today. These problem issues will not be just solved by Ruto going home. Because Ruto may go home. Then you have Gachagua there. Tomorrow you now be shouting, Gachagua must go, or Kalonzo must go. So we must find a way of dealing with these issues once and for all.
Recently you were in Bomet County. You attended a funeral for a relative in Bomet County. And you said, in your words, that hatutaki kusikia mambo ya Wamunyoro. This is for a man calling for an intergenerational national conclave, a national dialogue. Then it begs the question, is this a dialogue or division?
No, I just said we don't want to hear about individuals. We don't want to hear about Ruto or Gachagua. We want to talk about Kenya. Let us talk about issues rather than personalities, in my view. Let us talk about issues that are affecting Kenyans and it's the people versus the government. Let us deal with issues and ideas rather than personalities. Let us not discuss Raila. Let us not discuss Kalonzo or Gachagua or Ruto. Let us deal with issues affecting the country. So this is what I'm trying to talk about.
How do we then shield this dialogue? And you've seen already what this conversation has turned into. How do we shield this government from the thought that it is a process for the political elite and not a dialogue between Gen Z and the so-called tone-deaf political leadership?
Work today is broken. We're all working in too many disconnected apps, and it's killing team productivity.
Shielding it is the way it is going to be organized, the way it's coming up. It must be people-driven, right from the grassroots coming up. That's what I'm talking about. That's when it's going to be intergenerational dialogue. People, I'm just pushing it because I want it to start. Once it starts, it will actually take a life of its own. And you see, society is not static. Society is dynamic. It grows and grows, and issues come up and so on and so forth. That's why the idea that, oh, we are tired of this dialogue misses the point. Because there are critical issues. Why are people dying on the streets? If you're saying you don't want dialogue, what is the answer? If you say you have 2 years to the next elections, and these issues are not going to die away. But how many people are we going to lose until Ruto goes?
That's the very questions that Kenyans are asking, and it's the very questions why Kenyans are opposing the dialogue. The very point you've raised, that how many people are we going to lose, even after dialogues? Because we had the various dialogues, and I'm sorry to belabor on this particular point, but we've had various other dialogues, after which people are still dying in the streets.
They're not this kind of dialogue I'm talking about. We have been picking people to meet at Nanadco and so on up here. What I'm talking about is different. It is coming from the grassroots, and it's a big representative. We're dealing with Article 1 of our Constitution. It's very different. It's not just having a task force, having a team there to go and be talking about this issue, and write a report, take it to Parliament. No, this is different.
You've asked Ruto must go, that after Kenyans seeing Ruto must go, then what happens next? And I'll remind you what you said in your own speech, again on June 4th, 2023, when you said that you do not kneel before dictators. And that is what a section of Kenyans feel this particular administration is. You are calling them to dialogue with an administration which they say is tone deaf, an administration which they say after each and every other dialogue goes back to the very same bad habit and cultures. And that is what the people are saying. They are still in the streets and borrowing from what Raila Odinga has been in the past. This is what you said, and I was looking for this particular quote, that as a people, we are not given to suffering in silence. We do not kneel before dictators and beg them for their mercy. Even the few who do still suffer humiliation and even death. So we fight, we express ourselves loudly and clearly on issues affecting us. We've got to fight, and that fight begins this Friday. That Friday was Sabasaba of 2023. So that is what the people of Kenya today are feeling, that they've got to fight. They are borrowing heavily from this particular statement.
I tell you that's the time for everything. That was justified. Even last year was justified. I'm saying we've been all justified, but I'm saying now time has come to now move to the next level of now talking so that we find a solution to these issues. Because if we just continue the same way, you're doing the same thing the same way, you're expecting different results. You will not get different results. You bring people on the streets, they are unarmed, and the police are there. You see the consequences.
Well,
how do you deal with that?
Let's move the conversation forward. And the recommendations that will come out from the national conclave, eventually when it gets there, you have suggested that it be subjected to a referendum. How do you see us implementing the recommendations of the conclave and actually having a referendum on it?
Yeah, because I mean, once the conclave has spoken, it's now what now remains is the implementation, and that of course will be obvious because the people have spoken. They have invoked Article 1 of the Constitution. I don't see any court trying to stop that process.
The courts might remind us that there are only two ways of amending the Constitution: a popular initiative or a parliamentary process. Which of the two does this conclave fall in?
Popular initiative. This is the people, and that is provided for in the Constitution. We the people. The people are sovereign. They have the power. You can donate it to Parliament, but now they can speak directly. This is what I'm talking about.
There has got to be some kind of structure. Not all the 6,000 people or the 3,000 people, who will sit at the national level will lead this particular process. That's why I'm asking, who leads the structure, the national structure?
The national, no, these people haven't spoken. No, the resolution that they pass will now be brought back to the provisions of the Constitution. Okay? You go through the process of collecting signatures and so on.
Have you had a word with President William Ruto about the intergenerational national conclave proposal? And what has he said?
Well, this initially I did not discuss it with him. I just made this proposal myself because I was proposing it to Kenyans. I was not proposing it even as ODM. And I wanted the Kenyans to digest it first and reflect on it and see if they would accept it. So that's why I wanted it to be a debate. Should we have it or should we not have it? But I've given reasons why I think we should have it. And I think we're getting a kind of good momentum. President Ruto has not opposed it. I also mentioned it to President Uhuru Kenyatta. I mentioned it to Kalonzo Musyoka. I also mentioned
Kalonzo Musyoka has opposed it.
Yeah, but I talk to him every day. Even yesterday I talked to him about it. He's having what you call wait and see attitude. Okay? But you need to know that I talk to all these people. I talk to Martha all the times. A week does not pass before I've talked to them. Those who are in the
United Opposition.
United Opposition. I talk to all of them. So I'm not, and I talk to these people this other side. So I'm in a neutral position to try to heal the wounds, to bring the country together. Because even if you're talking about getting rid of Ruto, how do you get rid of Ruto unless you create conducive environment in which there can be a fair contest and he loses fairly and he accepts defeat? And you must create those conditions. You cannot do it when people are shouting at each other, okay? And but if Ruto wins and wins fairly, you must also accept that he's won fairly. So we need to mature our democracy.
We need to mature.
Our democracy must come of age, where, people contest as friends. And once elections are over, people shake hands.
Great. Let's now take the conversation forward. So how do you respond to those who say today that Odinga has betrayed the Gen Z, that Odinga is the biggest support system of William Ruto, and this is courtesy of the Gen Z protests?
That misses the point completely. Remember, I was asked to stay home And I stayed home. I did not come out at all. And then there was a stalemate. You see, what the Gen Zs did, which was very fundamental, was that they said clearly that the people had no confidence. They stormed Parliament, they stormed the Supreme Court, they were on the way to State House, meaning that no confidence in the three arms of the government. You see? Now, what happens in the situation? The government should have resigned, but the government did not resign. And you saw there was now a stalemate. The government was now going to bring in the military into the fray. And the Gen Zs were also not making much progress. So there was a standoff, which can easily go into a situation of anarchy, you see, because you don't have the power to compel the military to surrender, and you also now have the power to remove the president from State House. So you're just there. Anything can happen.
Are you running for presidency in 2027?
I have not said. I have not said that I'm running. And in my view, even if we are in 2025, it's too early for anybody to talk about 2027. Yeah.
What is the end game then with this working relationship with President William Ruto?
We have said that we are in the broad-based government after 2027, but we have not said that we are going to stick with, work with order beyond 2027. Those are issues that we'll discuss at the appropriate time.
Well, you've not said whether you're going to run for president or not, but those who are interested in running for presidency have already declared their bid. For instance, former Chief Justice David Maraga has already thrown his hat in the ring. So what is your plan? It's 2 years to the election. You must be having a plan, Your Excellency.
No, I don't have to run for presidency. I can support somebody else, but I can also run if I wanted to run. I have not made a decision because I don't think it is time to make a decision. At the moment, I'm more content in trying to organize my party, ODM, to be strong as a political party, so that if they want me to run, they will say it. If they want somebody else to run, or if they want to support somebody else, that will be the decision they will make at an appropriate time.
Some of your troops are already speaking about supporting William Ruto. They are speaking about it. Those
are the individuals. That is their decision as individuals, and they're entitled to it.
Kalonzo Musyoka, I'm very particular about him because he's a gentleman who is on record or has gone to support you 3 times. He wants to be president. Should he expect your support?
Sure. Me and Steve we are friends. We share a number of issues, and we've run together. I've got a lot of respect for Kalonzo Musyoka. He has not asked me for my support. And when the time comes, we will discuss and see who is capable of running. And that will be not just me and Kalonzo, or me and whoever you want to talk about, or me and Ruto, or me and Gachagua, for that matter. It will be about the party's interests first. And so it's not going to be just the interest of Raila Odinga. It will be an interest of the party.
Reports indicate that you are wooing Kalonzo to join President Ruto, then have them run on a joint ticket, and you support the both of them together. How true are these reports?
That is a total rubbish. That is not true at all. I have not asked Kalonzo, nor have I asked Ruto. We have not discussed those issues at all. Those issues will be discussed at the appropriate time. And I would also not say that I'm not in the ring I will also not say that I have not taken that decision. Yes.
Well, speaking about the elections, because that's what you're speaking about, it is rumored that you're a man who is between a rock and a hard place. One leg inside the broad-based government, one leg out, because of what the people are saying. And only your experts in government are the ones who are in favor of your continued stay in government. How do you respond to this?
Always my two legs, not otherwise I will not be able to walk. Wherever I am, I've got my two legs. And I've told the people that we are in this situation here because of the crisis the country is in at the moment. And we think that the decision we took was the right decision and was in the interest of the country.
And that decision you took, according to some people, has made you the only life support keeping William Ruto in power. Do you concur?
I don't at all. I think William Ruto would probably have been in power, or a state of anarchy would have cropped in my view. And you've seen what happened in Somalia. Once a country slips into that state, it takes a long time to get it back.
A good percentage right now of your fan base feels that you're becoming a turncoat. That what now your legacy is, or what you'll be remembered for, is not standing for truth, but for compromising and shaking hands with those you once opposed and softening the opposition's role. How do you feel knowing that this is what a section of Kenyans view as your current legacy?
This is very true. There's a lot of propaganda. You see, with Moi, we managed to tame Moi and eventually managed to start the constitutional review process. So it was an achievement. It was an achievement. It was not a compromise, because we all the times had our eyes on the ball. And Moi was going out at that time. And the only way to do was to get him to agree so that we could start the process of constitutional review. With Kibaki, the country was in turmoil. Many people had died, and it is not me. The international community came here and brought Kofi Annan to broker mediation. And Kofi Annan negotiated with a team from both sides, and eventually came up with a document which we signed, myself and Kibaki, and I signed it only after my team had agreed that we sign. I was actually forced into signing it. And because, as you know, I had won the elections, and it was rigged. I mean, rigging has taken place many times. With Uhuru Kenyatta, we agreed. You see, the country was bleeding at again the same time, and continuing was just going to be more bloody, as we did. And we agreed clearly on what was supposed to be done, which was then conceptualized in the BBI. It's the courts that rejected it. But I did not go into Uhuru's government. I didn't have a single minister or anybody.
They said you are actually a co-president in Uhuru's government. That's like they're saying you are co-president right now.
How was I co-president of the Uhuru
You're
government?
calling the shots.
I did not get even anybody appointed in government. No, none of my people are ever appointed in Uhuru's government. There's not any salary I got from Uhuru's government. What did I get? I got nothing. And Uhuru got going. He said he would support me, and he did support me in elections. That was the only thing that happened. So how did I compromise with Uhuru? I did not compromise with Uhuru. We agreed on reforms, and it was conceptualized in BBI. And the courts that rejected the BBI. See, otherwise the BBI would have passed. And then now the 2023 would not have happened. See, Chebukati would have been removed from the Electoral Commission. And you remember, Chebukati and 3 commissioners said one thing, and 4 commissioners
A different thing.
different thing. You see, and people for the first time, the Supreme Court accepted that 3 was bigger than 4. You see, now why are people not talking about Supreme Court ruling? Talking just about Raila. Once the Supreme Court did the ruling, my hands were tied. This is the Supreme Court that messed us up.
So you did not compromise.
No,
Now,
no, no
now
compromise.
because you've mentioned the IEC,
Yeah.
and we have a commission that is now 9 or 10 days in office, it is important, since this is your first interview, to get your onset thoughts about the new commission. What do you think is what Erastus Edung Ethekon and his commission must prioritize as their very first priority now that they're in office?
You see, first, the issue of electoral commission, I think they need to address one issue. Why are Kenya's elections on some of the most expensive elections in the world? You just go there. Because holding elections is not rocket science. You see? To do transparent electoral process is not rocket science. Here, the structure, the system will be there, have created so many roadblocks, basically meant to eat money. Like this idea of digitizing electoral process. It's a very simple process. It is done in most sophisticated societies like USA, even some simple country like India. And the process is very cheap. But then procurement becomes very expensive because it's a way of just eating money. You see? Even this process of voter registration should be very simple. Even demarcation of boundaries, it should be a very simple exercise. Now with tools like AI and so on. This is not something that should take a long time. So we need to first deal with voter register, clean it up, and allow more people to register. People should actually even just use an ID as your